My name's Ryan, I'm 37, and until a few months ago, I thought I had a pretty normal life. I've been married to Lily for 9 years, and we have what I thought was a solid, happy relationship. She's smart, charming, and let's be honest, gorgeous. People used to joke about how I'd married up, and I never argued. I mean, she's got this confidence about her that draws people in, and I loved that about her. Until it started to turn into something else. It began subtly. Lily had been going to yoga for years, so when she mentioned a new class at a fancy studio across town, I didn't think much of it. But then she started dressing differently, tighter leggings, low-cut tops, even full makeup. At first, I brushed it off. Women want to feel good about themselves, right? But it was hard not to notice how she started getting ready like she was going on a date, not to a workout. The excuses followed. She'd text me things like, class is running late, don't wait up, or going for smoothies with the girls after. That's when the nagging feeling in my gut started. I didn't want to believe it, but something didn't add up. Lily had always been social, but now she was glued to her phone and would tilt the screen away if I walked by. The breaking point came one Friday evening. I'd gotten home from work earlier than usual and found Lily in the bathroom, curling her hair. She was wearing a matching sports bra and leggings combo that left little to the imagination. Big yoga class tonight? I joked, trying to sound casual. Yeah, she said quickly, her voice too breezy. They're bringing in this new instructor. Everyone's really excited about it. She wouldn't meet my eyes, and something in her tone set me on edge. I smiled and let it go, but inside, I was boiling. That night, I decided to see for myself what was really going on. After she left, I grabbed my keys and drove across town to the yoga studio. I parked a block away, not wanting to be seen, and waited. Her class was supposed to end at 8:30, but when the parking lot started to empty out around 9, her car was still there. And then I saw him. A tall guy with broad shoulders and perfectly styled hair strolled out of the studio. He wasn't dressed for yoga. No mat, no workout clothes. He headed straight for the hotel next door, and sure enough, not 5 minutes later, Lily's car followed him. I sat there, frozen, watching as she parked and walked inside without even a glance around. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I wanted to storm in there, but something stopped me. Instead, I waited, stewing in the car, my mind racing with questions and worst-case scenarios. What would you do if you were me? Because I was stuck, sitting there in the dark, watching my world unravel. I waited for over an hour, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Every minute felt like a lifetime, my mind conjuring images of what was happening in that hotel. I kept telling myself there had to be another explanation, some innocent reason for all this. But deep down, I knew. Around 10:15, the hotel door opened, and there they were. Lily stepped out first, her hair slightly messy, her yoga gear looking off. Following close behind was the guy from earlier, his hand brushing against her lower back as they walked toward the parking lot. They were laughing. My stomach churned at the sound. Before I even realized what I was doing, I threw open the car door and strode toward them. Lily, I barked. She froze mid-step, her eyes wide. For a split second, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then her face twisted into something else, annoyance. Ryan? What the hell are you doing here? She snapped, her voice sharp and defensive. Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing, I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and adrenaline. My eyes flicked to the guy, who was now standing a little too casually, like he wasn't the least bit fazed by my presence. Who's this? I asked, already knowing the answer. Lily opened her mouth, but before she could speak, the guy stepped forward, extending a hand. I'm Max, he said, flashing me a smug smile. You must be Ryan. I ignored his hand, glaring at him. You want to tell me what's going on here? Lily crossed her arms, her face hardening. It's not what you think, she said quickly. We were just talking. Talking? I interrupted, my voice rising. In a hotel? After your yoga class? I turned to Max. What kind of guy meets a married woman in a hotel, parking lot after lying to her husband? Max didn't flinch. In fact, he smirked. The kind she's been seeing for months, he said smoothly. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Months. That word echoed in my head as I stared at Lily, hoping, praying, that she'd deny it. Tell me this was all some terrible misunderstanding. But she didn't. Instead, she glared at Max. Are you serious right now? She hissed. You're not helping. Helping? I exploded. Helping with what, Lily? Covering up your affair? Lying to my face every single day? She threw her hands up. It wasn't supposed to be like this, okay? It just happened. I didn't plan it. I laughed bitterly. You didn't plan it? You've been sneaking around for months, and you didn't plan it? Do you think I'm stupid? Her face twisted in anger. You don't understand, Ryan. You haven't been there for me. Not the way I needed you to be. You're always so focused on work and… Don't you dare blame this on me. I shot back, my voice cold and steady now. I've been busting my ass to give us a good life. And this is how you repay me? With hotel hookups and bullshit excuses about yoga? Max, apparently deciding he'd heard enough, stepped in again. Look, man, maybe if you'd been paying attention to her, this wouldn't have happened. That was it. I lunged at him, grabbing his collar and shoving him back against a parked car. Say that again, I growled, my fist poised to strike. Ryan, stop it. Lily yelled, pulling at my arm. You're making a scene. I let go, shoving him away in disgust. You're not worth it, I spat. Turning to Lily, I added, and neither are you. Her face fell, but she quickly masked it with anger. Fine, she snapped. If you want to act like this, maybe it's better if we're done. I laughed darkly. Oh, don't worry. We're done. But you're not walking away from this without consequences. I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of them standing there together. Lily looking furious, Max rubbing his collar with that smug grin still plastered on his face. Smile, I said coldly. This one's for the scrapbook. Without waiting for a response, I got in my car and drove off, leaving them in the parking lot. My heart was pounding, my mind racing. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but one thing was clear. This wasn't over. By the time I got home, my hands were still shaking. I sat in the car for a few minutes, trying to process what had just happened. The woman I'd shared my life with for nearly a decade, the woman I thought I knew, had been lying to my face for months. And Max? That smug bastard had the audacity to act like he was doing me a favor. When I finally stepped inside, the house felt different, like it wasn't mine anymore. Her shoes were by the door, her coat draped over the back of a chair. Everything about the place screamed her name, and it made me sick. I poured myself a drink, my mind already spinning with plans. I didn't want to just walk away from this. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, and I wanted everyone else to see her for who she really was. The first thing I did was upload the photo to my private cloud, just in case Lily got the brilliant idea to snoop through my phone. Then I opened a group chat with a handful of our mutual friends, the ones who'd been there since the start of our relationship. Got something you all should see, I typed, attaching the picture. The responses came fast. What the hell, Ryan? Is that Lily? Who's the guy? Holy shit, man. Are you okay? I told them everything. How she'd been sneaking around. How I'd caught her at the hotel. How Max had taunted me like it was some kind of joke. One by one, my friends rallied around me. Some offered to come over, but I declined. I didn't need company. I needed a plan. The next morning, I took the photo and a copy of the text messages Lily had sent me during her fake yoga sessions and emailed them to her boss, Allison. Allison wasn't just Lily's manager. She was someone who prided herself on running a tight, drama-free ship. And since Max was a client of Lily's company, I knew this would cause waves. It didn't take long for the fallout to start. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Lily. What the hell is wrong with you? You sent that picture to Allison? Do you know what you've done? I stared at the message for a moment before replying. Just leveling the playing field, Lily. You don't get to blow up my life and walk away unscathed. Her response came almost immediately. You're such an asshole. You're ruining my career over a mistake. Mistake? I shot back. You mean the months-long affair with a guy you introduced to me as a friend? Yeah, I'm the asshole here. After that, she stopped responding. I figured she was too busy trying to pick up the pieces at work. That evening, I changed the locks on the house. I wasn't about to let her waltz back in like nothing had happened. I packed up all her stuff, every dress, every shoe, every piece of jewelry, and left it in the garage with a note taped to the door. You can pick these up when I'm home. Don't bother trying the locks. They've been changed. Ryan. When she showed up later that night, she banged on the front door like a lunatic. Ryan, open the damn door. I stayed on the couch, sipping my whiskey. Your stuff's in the garage, Lily. Take it and go. You can't do this, she screamed. This is my house too. Not anymore, I said, loud enough for her to hear. I've already contacted a lawyer. You'll get the paperwork soon enough. She didn't respond to that, just stormed off. A minute later, I heard her car peel out of the driveway. I didn't feel good about any of it. Not yet. But there was a grim satisfaction in knowing I'd taken the first steps toward reclaiming my life. The next few days were a whirlwind. Lily had moved out, or more accurately, she was forced out. But the ripple effects of her actions were just beginning. My focus shifted from the personal to the professional, ensuring that every piece of evidence I had gathered was used strategically. First, there was her job. The email I'd sent to Allison had included the photo of Lily and Max outside the hotel, along with a short but damning message. Allison, I wanted to bring this to your attention. The man in this picture is Max, one of your clients, and the woman is Lily, your employee and my soon-to-be ex-wife. They've been having an affair for months. I thought you'd want to know, considering the professional and ethical implications. The fallout hit fast. 2 days after I sent the email, Lily texted me. You've completely screwed me over. Allison pulled me into a meeting and suspended me. Max is losing his contract because of you. I couldn't help but smirk as I typed my reply. I didn't screw you over, Lily. You did that all on your own. Maybe next time, don't mix work and infidelity. She didn't respond. The grapevine worked overtime, and soon enough, word spread through her office. Mutual friends who worked in the same industry started reaching out to me, filling me in on the gossip. Apparently, Max had tried to smooth things over with his firm, but the photo and the attached story had already reached too many ears. His contract with Lily's company was terminated, and he was quickly blacklisted by a few others. But the real kicker came from Lily's own colleagues. One of them, a woman named Paige who I'd met a few times at company events, reached out with a simple message. I'm so sorry, Ryan. None of us had any idea she was doing this. We all thought Max was just a professional contact. If there's anything I can do, let me know. I didn't reply right away, but her message lit a fire in me. I wasn't just going to sit back and let Lily walk away from this with a slap on the wrist. She needed to understand that actions had consequences, and I was more than willing to deliver them. A day later, Paige and I met for coffee. She'd insisted on speaking in person, saying there was more she wanted to share. I'll be honest, she said, stirring her latte nervously. The office is in chaos right now. Allison's furious, and the rest of us are just stunned. Lily was so good at keeping up this perfect image. Nobody saw this coming. Well, I sure didn't either, I said bitterly, sipping my black coffee. Paige hesitated before leaning in closer. There's something else. Max wasn't just a client. He was angling for a partnership with the company. Lily was one of the people advocating for it. My grip tightened around the coffee cup. You're telling me she was trying to bring him in as a permanent part of her work? Paige nodded. It's all speculation now, of course, but it's clear she was blurring a lot of lines. Unbelievable, I muttered. Paige gave me a sympathetic smile. If you want to make sure she doesn't worm her way back into anyone's good graces, let me know. I can help. Her words were like a lifeline. I wasn't just fighting this battle alone. Other people were starting to see Lily for who she really was. Armed with the new information, I sent another email to Allison, this time more pointed. Allison, I've recently learned that Lily was advocating for Max's partnership with the company while engaging in a personal relationship with him. This seems like a serious conflict of interest that deserves further review. Let me know if I can provide any additional context. The response was swift. Allison thanked me for bringing the issue to light and assured me that a thorough investigation was underway. I didn't need to know the details to guess how it would end. Later that week, I heard through Paige that Lily's suspension had turned into an official termination. She was out of a job, her reputation in the industry in tatters. Max, meanwhile, had burned every bridge he'd spent years building. I won't lie, there was a deep, vindictive satisfaction in watching them both spiral. They'd played me for a fool, and now they were paying the price. With Lily's professional life in ruins, my focus turned to the divorce. I met with my lawyer, Helen, who was nothing short of brilliant. She listened to everything, every lie, every betrayal, and immediately started building a case that would leave Lily with as little as possible. Given the evidence you've gathered, Helen said, tapping her pen against her notepad, we can make a strong argument for financial misconduct. She's already lost her job, so spousal support isn't likely to be an issue. And with the affair on record, you're in a good position to protect your assets. Hearing her lay it all out so clearly gave me a strange sense of calm. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was in control. A week after Lily's termination, things took a sharp turn. The mutual friends who'd been supportive of me started cutting ties with her, one by one. My group chat lit up constantly with updates. Lily showed up at Carla's house unannounced, crying about how unfair all this is. She's posting cryptic quotes on Instagram, something about betrayal and second chances. Unbelievable. Max is out of town. Rumor is he's dodging the backlash. Typical. I wasn't surprised. Lily had always been good at playing the victim. When we fought in the past, she'd twist the narrative until I was the one apologizing, even if she was clearly in the wrong. But this time, there was no escaping what she'd done. She tried reaching out to me directly, of course. At first, it was a string of angry texts. "You've ruined my life, Ryan. Do you even care how this is affecting me? I made one mistake, and you've turned it into this circus." I didn't reply to any of them. When anger didn't work, she shifted gears, sending long, rambling messages about how she missed what we had and wanted to fix things. I know I messed up, but don't you think we owe it to ourselves to try? 9 years, Ryan. That has to mean something. I almost laughed when I read that one. 9 years did mean something, to me. Clearly, it hadn't meant much to her when she was sneaking around with Max. The tipping point came when Lily decided to air our dirty laundry on social media. She posted a long-winded caption under an old wedding photo of us, claiming she was the victim of a vindictive smear campaign orchestrated by me. "No one's perfect," the post read. "I made mistakes, but does that mean I deserve to lose everything? To anyone who truly knows me, you understand my heart. Please don't believe the lies." The comments were a mix of support from people who clearly didn't know the full story and outright disgust from those who did. Mistakes? You cheated on your husband and lied about it for months. Own up to it. Ryan deserved better. You brought this on yourself. One comment in particular caught my eye. Maybe focus less on Instagram and more on fixing your mess. I couldn't have said it better myself. At first, I considered ignoring her little publicity stunt. But then I realized I had an opportunity to set the record straight. I crafted a single post of my own, sharing the photo of Lily and Max outside the hotel, along with a brief explanation. "This is why my marriage ended." I didn't want to air this publicly, but since Lily decided to rewrite history, here's the truth. She lied, cheated, and destroyed our relationship. I've moved on, and I suggest she does the same. I expected backlash, but instead, my post was met with overwhelming support. Friends, colleagues, even casual acquaintances reached out, expressing their sympathy and admiration for how I was handling everything. One message stood out. It was from Allison, Lily's former boss. "Ryan, I saw your post. I just want to say I'm sorry you had to go through this. Lily's actions were unacceptable on so many levels, both personally and professionally. If you ever need a reference or assistance, don't hesitate to reach out." Her offer floored me. Not only had I managed to expose Lily's lies, but I'd also gained unexpected allies along the way. In the midst of all this, I got word that Max had skipped town. According to Paige, he'd gone on a retreat to clear his head. Translation: he couldn't handle the fallout and had decided to hide until the storm passed. I wasn't surprised. Max had struck me as a coward from the moment I met him. The type of guy who'd charm his way into a situation and bail the second things got tough. Good riddance, I muttered to myself when I heard the news. A few days later, Lily showed up at the house unannounced. I saw her car pull into the driveway and debated ignoring her, but curiosity got the better of me. I stepped outside, arms crossed, as she approached with a sheepish expression. "Ryan," she started, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, but I needed to talk to you." "What is it, Lily?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She looked down, twisting her hands nervously. "I wanted to apologize for everything. I know I hurt you, and I hate myself for it. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I just needed to say it." For a moment, I almost believed her. She looked genuine, vulnerable even. But then I remembered the lies, the manipulation, the way she tried to paint herself as the victim online. "Apology accepted," I said coldly. "Now, if that's all, you can leave." Her face crumpled, and for a split second, I saw the mask slip. She wasn't sorry, not really. She was just grasping at straws, desperate to salvage what little dignity she had left. "Ryan, please," she whispered. "Can't we at least try to fix this?" I shook my head, my resolve unshaken. "There's nothing left to fix, Lily. You made sure of that." She stood there for a moment, as if expecting me to change my mind. When I didn't, she turned and walked back to her car. As I watched her drive away, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time since this nightmare began, I knew I was truly done with her. With Lily's departure from my life growing more permanent by the day, my focus turned fully to the divorce. Helen, my lawyer, was relentless, combing through every detail to ensure Lily wouldn't walk away with a single cent more than she deserved. Given her infidelity and the evidence we have, Helen explained during our latest meeting, the court isn't likely to look favorably on her. She might try to push for alimony since she lost her job, but we can argue that it was a direct result of her own actions. "That's what I want," I said firmly. "I don't want her taking a dime from me." Helen smirked, tapping her pin against the table. "Don't worry, Ryan. We've got her pinned." The legal process was grueling, but I approached it with the same determination that had gotten me through the rest of this mess. Every meeting with Helen felt like progress. Every form I signed a step closer to freedom. Of course, Lily didn't take things lying down. She hired her own lawyer, a sleazy guy named Brent, who looked like he'd stepped out of a late-night infomercial. Brent's strategy was predictable: paint Lily as the victim. During one of our mediation sessions, he leaned back in his chair and said, "It's clear my client has been through a lot emotionally, and the stress of this process is only making things worse. Given the duration of the marriage and her current financial situation, we believe a fair settlement is appropriate." Helen didn't even blink. "My client has already provided evidence of Mrs. Grant's infidelity, which directly contributed to the breakdown of the marriage. Furthermore, her financial situation is the result of her professional misconduct. We're not here to reward bad behavior." Lily shot me a venomous glare across the table, but I didn't flinch. She'd chosen this path, and now she had to walk it. The real turning point came when Brent tried to argue that Lily had been financially dependent on me for years. It was a weak move, considering we'd split most expenses evenly during our marriage. Helen pounced on it immediately. "Mrs. Grant's financial independence is well documented," she said, sliding a stack of bank statements across the table. "In fact, her account activity shows several large, unexplained withdrawals over the past few months. If necessary, we're prepared to subpoena additional records to determine where that money went." Lily's face went pale. I knew exactly what those withdrawals were for: hotel rooms, fancy dinners, and whatever other expenses she and Max had racked up during their affair. Brent stammered, trying to recover. "We don't believe that's relevant to these proceedings." Helen raised an eyebrow. "The court might disagree. Shall we proceed?" It was a masterstroke. Brent backed down, and Lily was forced to accept the bare minimum in the settlement. No alimony, no claim to the house, and only the assets she'd contributed to directly. When the divorce was finalized a few weeks later, I felt an enormous weight lift off my shoulders. The court had sided with me on every major issue, leaving Lily with little more than her personal belongings and a bruised ego. Helen and I shared a celebratory drink after the hearing. "You handled this well," she said, raising her glass. "Not everyone keeps their cool in situations like this." "Had to," I replied. Losing my temper wouldn't have gotten me anywhere. Besides, I had a lot of motivation to see this through. She nodded knowingly. Closure has a way of making the fight worth it. With the divorce behind me, I started to rebuild my life. I sold the house, a place that had once held so many memories but now felt like a tomb, and moved into a sleek apartment downtown. It wasn't huge, but it was mine, free of ghosts from the past. Lily, on the other hand, wasn't faring so well. Paige kept me updated on the rumors floating around. Lily was couch surfing at friends' places, her professional network in tatters, while Max had completely disappeared. He left town for good, Paige told me over coffee one day. Some people are saying he moved back in with his parents. I chuckled darkly. Good. They deserve each other. Despite everything, I wasn't naive enough to think the scars would fade overnight. I started going to therapy, not because I was falling apart, but because I wanted to make sure I didn't carry this baggage into my future. My therapist, Dr. Keller, was blunt but effective. She betrayed you, Ryan, she said during one session. That's not your fault, but you do need to figure out what you want to take away from this experience. Otherwise, it'll haunt you. I thought about that for a long time. What did I want to take away? That trust is fragile? That people aren't always who they seem? Those lessons felt obvious, but they didn't feel like enough. Eventually, I landed on something simpler. I wanted to be better, stronger, smarter, and most importantly, I wanted to build a life that couldn't be destroyed by someone else's lies. The weeks after the divorce felt like a strange mix of emptiness and freedom. On one hand, I'd spent nearly a decade with Lily, building a life that now seemed like a lie. On the other hand, I finally had the chance to live for myself, without the constant undercurrent of manipulation and deceit. At first, I wasn't sure what to do with the free time. The apartment was quiet, my evenings unstructured, but slowly, I began filling the void with things I'd neglected during my marriage. I threw myself into fitness, hitting the gym 5 days a week. At first, it was just a way to burn off the anger and frustration still lingering in my chest. But as the weeks passed, I started seeing results: muscle definition, increased energy, a sense of control over my body that I hadn't felt in years. The gym became my sanctuary, a place where I could focus entirely on myself. One of the trainers, a guy named Marcus, took me under his wing, introducing me to new workouts and pushing me to my limits. "You're killing it, man," he said one evening after a grueling session. "Keep this up, and you'll be unrecognizable in 6 months." "Good," I replied, wiping the sweat from my face. "That's the plan." One of the most unexpected positives to come out of this ordeal was the way my friendships strengthened. During my marriage, I'd let a lot of those relationships fade, too busy dealing with Lily's constant demands and dramas. But now, people were reaching out, inviting me to grab drinks, watch games, or just hang out. One night, I found myself at a bar with a few old college buddies. The conversation turned to Lily, as it inevitably did. "So, did she really post that Instagram sob story?" my friend Eric asked, shaking his head. "Yep," I said, taking a sip of my beer. "And people actually bought it, for like a day." Then the truth came out. They laughed, but there was an edge of disbelief in their voices. "Man," Eric said, "you dodged a bullet. She would have dragged you down forever." "Yeah," I agreed. "And I'm not letting anyone do that again." One afternoon, while I was grabbing coffee at a local cafe, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years, Natalie, a friend from high school who'd moved away after graduation. She was standing in line ahead of me, and I almost didn't recognize her, until she turned around and smiled. "Ryan," she said, her eyes lighting up. "Oh my God, it's been forever." We ended up sitting together, catching up over lattes. Natalie had moved back to the area recently and was working as a graphic designer. She was funny, smart, and easy to talk to, qualities I hadn't realized I'd missed so much. By the time we finished our drinks, we'd exchanged numbers. "Let's hang out sometime," she said with a grin. "It's good to see you again." For the first time in months, I felt a genuine spark of excitement about the future. Meanwhile, Lily was still trying to pick up the pieces of her life. Paige kept me updated on the occasional bits of gossip that trickled through the grapevine. She's been bouncing between friends' couches, Paige told me over the phone. And apparently, she's been trying to get Max to come back, but he's ignoring her. Typical, I said. He ran the second things got tough. What did she expect? She's also been badmouthing you to anyone who'll listen, Paige added. Not that it's working. Most people know the truth by now. I wasn't surprised. Lily had always been good at spinning stories, but her credibility had taken a massive hit. It was only a matter of time before people stopped listening altogether. In my sessions with Dr. Keller, we started diving deeper into the patterns that had defined my relationship with Lily. She controlled the narrative, Dr. Keller said during one session. Whenever you felt like something was off, she redirected your attention or made you doubt yourself. That's classic manipulative behavior. Yeah, I said, staring at the ceiling. And I fell for it. Every time. Don't beat yourself up, she replied. You trusted her because that's what partners are supposed to do. The real question is, what can you do differently moving forward? That question stuck with me. What could I do differently? How could I make sure I never ended up in a situation like this again? By the end of the session, I had an answer. I would trust myself. My instincts had been screaming at me for months before I finally acted on them. Next time, I wouldn't ignore them. As the months passed, I began to feel like a different person, stronger, smarter, and more in control of my life. The anger I'd carried with me for so long started to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence. Lily and Max were nothing more than bad memories now, lessons I'd learned the hard way. And while the scars were still there, they no longer defined me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. By the time summer rolled around, the shadow of my marriage to Lily had faded into the background. The apartment felt like home now, decorated with furniture and art I'd picked out for myself. My gym routine was second nature, my evenings filled with books, hobbies, and the occasional drink with friends. The one thing I hadn't expected was how quickly things were progressing with Natalie. What started as casual hangouts quickly turned into something more. She was unlike anyone I'd dated before. Down-to-earth, honest, and completely uninterested in playing games. One Saturday afternoon, Natalie and I were hiking a trail outside the city, the warm sun filtering through the trees. We'd spent most of the hike talking about everything from childhood memories to career aspirations. But at one point, she stopped and looked at me with a serious expression. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. What happened with your ex?" I paused, taken slightly off guard. "You mean Lily?" She nodded. "You don't have to tell me if you're not ready. I get the sense that it was rough." I sighed, leaning against a nearby tree. "It was rough," I admitted. "She cheated on me with someone I thought was a friend. Lied about it for months. By the time I found out, she'd already burned every bridge between us." Natalie's brow furrowed. "That's awful. I'm so sorry, Ryan." "It's okay," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. "I've learned a lot since then. I'm not the same person I was when I was with her." She reached out, her hand brushing mine. "Well, for what it's worth, I think you're a pretty great person now." The warmth in her voice made my chest tighten in a way that wasn't painful. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt something close to hope. Despite moving on, Lily hadn't completely disappeared from my life. Every few weeks, I get a text or email from her, ranging from accusatory to pleading. "You destroyed me, Ryan. I miss us. Can't we just talk? You'll regret this one day. Mark my words." I never replied. There was no point. She wasn't sorry. She was desperate. The last straw came when she showed up at my apartment unannounced. It was a Tuesday evening, and I'd just gotten home from work when I heard a sharp knock at the door. When I opened it, there she was, disheveled, tear-streaked, and holding a box of what looked like old photos. "Ryan," she said, her voice trembling, "I need to talk to you." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "What do you want, Lily?" She held out the box. "I found these while I was packing up some stuff. They're, they're from when we were happy." I glanced at the box but didn't reach for it. "Why are you here, Lily?" I made a mistake," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought I could move on, but I can't. I need you, Ryan. We can fix this." "I know we can." I stared at her, the weight of her words washing over me. There was a time when I might have believed her, when the sound of her tears would have been enough to make me reconsider. But not anymore. I've already fixed my life, I said quietly, and it doesn't include you. Her face crumpled, but I didn't flinch. She tried to push the box into my hands, but I stepped back. Take care of yourself, Lily, I said, my voice firm but calm. And don't come here again. I walked back inside, locking the door behind me. For the first time, I felt like I truly closed the door on that chapter of my life. Natalie and I grew closer in the weeks that followed. She didn't push me to talk about my past, but she was there when I needed her. One evening, as we sat on my balcony watching the city lights, she leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You're different when you talk about the future. Like you're not scared of it anymore." "I'm not," I admitted. For the first time in a long time, I'm actually excited about it. The words felt strange but true. The wounds Lily had left were healing, and in their place was a sense of strength I didn't know I had. By the time fall arrived, I'd started to feel like myself again, only better. Therapy, friends, and my own determination had pulled me out of a place I thought I'd never escape. Lily's texts and emails eventually stopped, and as far as I knew, she'd faded into the background. Max was long gone, too. His brief foray into my life, nothing more than a bad memory. Natalie, on the other hand, was a constant presence, her support and kindness reminding me of what a healthy relationship was supposed to look like. One night, as we were cooking dinner together, she turned to me with a smile. "You're happier now," she said. "I can tell." "I am," I said simply, and for the first time in years, I truly believed it. Subscribe so you don't miss new stories on the channel.